Though the fires of the Dajur Bragalak had subsided, their ruinous aftermath spread like a festering wound across the lands of Beleriand. Morgoth was not satiated by his overwhelming victory. His ultimate design remained the total annihilation of the final strongholds of elves and men. In the year 457 of the First Age, as the winter snows thawed and the earth struggled to heal from its traumas, Sauron, Morgoth's most formidable and terrible lieutenant, launched a new offensive. Sauron was no mere instrument of brute force. His power resided in deceit, sorcery, and the weaving of relentless fear. Leading a host of werewolves, he moved stealthily southward, his gaze fixed upon the tower of Minas Tirith at the pass of Sur-Ion. This fortress, built by Finrod Felagund to keep watch over the western valles, served as the very eyes of Nargothrond. The tower was then held by Orodreth, Finrod's nephew. Brave though he was, he proved no match for the black arts of Sauron, which spread like a pestilence. Sauron did not launch a direct assault. Instead, he cast a sorcerous cloud of despair and terror over the island. The defenders were plagued by phantoms of their kin being torn asunder by wolves, and their courage withered before this unseen horror. Minas Tirith fell without the spilling of blood in open battle. Orodreth, guarded by a small company, fled in haste to Nargothrond with the grim tidings. Sauron seized the tower and transformed it into a den of evil surveillance and witchcraft. Henceforth, it was called Tolingorhoth, the Isle of Werewolves. The pass of Sur-Ion was severed, and any creature attempting to enter Beleriand from the west fell into his cruel grasp. In this shrinking land encircled by shadow, the threads of fate began to weave two young human heroes toward a legendary hidden city. In FA 458, Hurin and Huor, the young scions of the House of Hadar, became separated from their company during a skirmish with orcs and were pursued to the fringes of the Forest of Brethil. Just as they were about to be surrounded, Ulmo, Lord of Waters, stirred the river and raised a great mist, shielding them from their foes. As the brothers wandered lost in the fog, two great eagles descended from the heavens. They bore the youths aloft, soaring over the jagged peaks of the encircling mountains, and brought them at last to the hidden marvel of Gondolin. King Turgon, weary with the news of the world's defeats, welcomed them. In these youths of his most trusted allies, he saw a glimmer of hope. According to an ancient prophecy of Ulmo, the House of Hadar would one day aid Gondolin in its hour of direst need. Turgon treated them with high honor. Hurin learned the ancient lore and strategy of the Eldar, while Huor often gazed in silence upon the king's daughter, the fair Princess Idril. Hurin and Huor dwelt in Gondolin for a year. Yet, their hearts yearned for their kin in Hithlum and the fires of battle. In FA 459, though loath to see them depart, Turgon granted their request. After swearing a solemn oath never to reveal the city's location, they were carried back to Dor-Lamin by the eagles. Their return was met with wonder, for they had been mourned as dead. When questioned about their missing year, they remained true to their word and spoke nothing of where they had been. This experience planted a seed of undying loyalty to Gondolin, a seed that would later blossom into the most tragic and heroic of sacrifices. Meanwhile, in the cursed forests of Dorthonion, Barahir and his 12 outlaws continued their desperate resistance. Living like wolves in the wild, they used their knowledge of the terrain and fearless courage to harry the armies of Morgoth. Their names became a nightmare to the orcs of the region, and Morgoth's hatred for them grew until he offered a vast reward for Barahir's head. In FA 460, tragedy struck. Gorlam the Unhappy, one of Barahir's men, could no longer endure the hardship. Seeking his lost wife, he was captured by the servants of Sauron. Under the weight of cruel torture and sorcery, he broke and revealed the outlaw's hiding place. Sauron sent a company of orcs, led by the treacherous Information, to ambush the secret camp by the waters of Tarn Ilúin under the cover of night. Only Búrin, Barahir's son, was away on scout duty and escaped the slaughter. Upon returning, he found a scene of horror. His father and all his companions had been butchered in their sleep. The orc captain had hewn off Barahir's hand, which bore a famous ring, to claim the reward. Consumed by grief and a phantom-like rage, Búrin hunted the orcs alone. He overtook them at the Rivel's well, where the orcs were boasting of their kill and mocking the severed hand. Búrin sprang from the shadows, slew the captain, reclaimed his father's hand and the ring, and vanished back into the wilderness. From that day forth, he became a solitary predator with a king's ransom on his head. Morgoth was not content with the destruction of Barahir. In FA 462, he gathered a massive host for a second invasion of Hithlum, aiming to crush the House of Hadar once and for all. Galdor the Tall, Lord of Dor-Lamin, fell to a poisoned arrow while defending the fortress of Idle Sur-Ion. His eldest son, Hurin, stepped into the leadership of his house amidst the smoke of war. Though young, Hurin's prowess and command rivaled that of the veteran lords. Allied with Fingon, the High King of the Noldor, and Círdan the Shipwright, who sent reinforcements from the havens of the Falas, they formed an unbreakable line. While Fingon met the orcs head-on and Círdan harried their flanks, Hurin led his men in a berserker charge into the enemy's rear. The orc host was shattered and driven back in ruin. This victory bolstered the spirits of elves and men, and the name of Hurin began to echo across Beleriand. However, as the West celebrated a temporary reprieve, a more insidious threat appeared in the East. In FA 463, great tribes of swarthy, broad-shouldered men crossed the Blue Mountains and entered Beleriand. These were the Easterlings. Their arrival was met with both wariness and curiosity. The sons of Fëanor, particularly Maedhros, and Caranther who guarded the eastern borders, sought to bring them into the alliance. One group, led by a chieftain named Bor, swore faithful service to Maedhros and remained true. But another, more numerous host led by Ulfang the Black and his sons, feigned allegiance to Caranther while secretly being corrupted by the agents of Morgoth. This move by Morgoth was a masterstroke of malice. He knew that while steel might fail, the strike from within, the rod of betrayal, is the most certain path to ruin. He was patiently weaving a web of lies and treachery, waiting for the day he would sweep away all remaining hope. The fate of Beleriand stood at a crossroads, and the road ahead was paved with blood, treachery, and a tragic destiny already written in the stars.